The November 6th banned and suspended announcement has come and gone without too much fanfare. Nothing unexpected for Classic Constructed, really just the Lexi stuff. And yes, while there was a change on the Blitz side, Soul Reaping, it's not major enough to really move the needle all that much, at least in my opinion. However, the big news, the massive news really, is the significant shakeup in the Living Legends system. A huge shout out to our channel members for supporting what we do here. If you want to get involved with the channel and the Dice Commando community, please consider joining as a channel member. Remember, these videos are only possible with your support. You can show that support with a like, a subscribe, and by leaving us a comment and sharing your feedback. Community first, and go Commando. Hey there, my flesh and blood friends. Welcome back to Dice Commando and Go Again, a fabulous cast. Thanks for checking in today, talking the major news, I think, earlier this week about the Living Legend system. Some systematic changes that I think are going to have, not I think, I'm confident are going to have some major impact. Now, let's all collectively take a deep breath, right? The Living Legend system itself can be a discussion, right? Let's say that, right? So let's just imagine for a second, that the Living Legend system is the system that we have in the game, right? And whether we like it or not, it's here and it is what it is, right? So pro, con, doesn't matter. I'm saying for the next 10, 15, 20 minutes, however long this takes, let's put on our reasonable caps and try to have a balanced and reasonable discussion about the changes rather than just devolving into chaos. Now, I get it. We're on the internet. I know. Yeah. Right. So let's chat about the changes today, right? Because whether you're pro, anti, or neutral, I think a lot of people out there aren't really wrapping their heads around some of the long-term implications of these changes, especially to Blitz. And actually, I just said long-term implication that might not actually be true. They could change these in January after Skirmish Season 8. That's actually very potential for Blitz. But you know, there's some big stuff, at least on the near-term horizon. So I'll retract my long-term, but on the near-term, some of this is pretty big, right? So, you know, let's kind of get into the changes themselves, and then I want to talk about why I think a lot of people maybe aren't quite getting, you know, the thumbnail was JW threw a boom grenade in, and I think to a certain extent that's what's happening, is they're kind of just blowing it up. And you know, I don't know if we want to call it Fab 3.0 because I don't think they're changing that side of things, but I think it looks like they're trying to rotate a whole bunch of heroes in pretty aggressive fashion, again, at least for Blitz. So, you know, if you're one that's worried about stale metas, you're probably a huge fan of the changes. And if you think LL happens too fast, then probably a sad panda. All right, so the news that came out this week, some of the events had points changes. Now, the World Championship, so I'm showing that up right now, the World Championship one moving from 200 to 300, it should not be a surprise to anyone. They had Blitz as part of the World Championship last year. 200 went to CC, and 100 went to the Blitz hero that the winner used to get there. Now, in last year's case, they were both Icelander because it was Michael Hamilton. Makes complete sense. I do want to point out that was without, by the way, that was without the Wizard Boots, which is pretty impressive. The big change, I think, is the Battle Hardened. It going from 10 to 40. It kind of feels sometimes like there's a Battle Hardened like every weekend. And that's how it feels kind of right now, is that there's a Battle Hardened every weekend. And obviously that's probably not like true year round, but that's a significant jump in points going from 10 to 40. And, you know, remember the Battle Hardens are sometimes, most of the time they're CC, but when they're in conjunction with like a calling or some other event, a lot of times they are Blitz ones. And an extra 30 points injected into the Blitz format is pretty big because the Blitz format is still a 500 cap. All right, so national championships move from 10 to 20 for the big ones and from 4 to 20 for the PTIs. Okay. Oh, sorry, I read that wrong. So less than 96 moves from 10 to 20. Excuse me. Take that back. But the big one here that I want to talk about mostly for the rest is skirmishes moving from 2 to 4. Now, you may, from other videos in Skirmish Season 7, remember for Skirmish Season 7, they dropped it from 2 to 1. So heroes only earned 1 point during Skirmish Season 7. Well, now we're about to head into Skirmish Season 8, and it went back to 2, I guess, before. So effectively, though, we're going from 1 to 4 because that's what we were for Skirmish Season 7, right? During the summer, it was 1 point. Now we're at 4 points, right? So that's a big deal in of itself, okay? And you can start doing the math in your head, and we'll go there in a second. But you add that all in combination with this excerpt from James's article, on the subject, right? They are functionally changing when the LL check occurs, right? Currently, well, not currently because this is in effect. Previously, we would only look at LL would only check during the BNS announcements, which were generally following a competitive season, right? It would follow Blitz. That's when we lost Icelander Oldhim, for example. We just lost Lexi on Tuesday, technically, even though she'd had the points way before. We didn't actually lose her until November 6th. Now, they're moving to a system where it checks constantly, which I personally think I personally think it's a good thing. Others might hate it, having changed within the middle of a competitive season. But again, with all of the current bitching, let's be honest, about stale metas, I think this makes sense. I think it's a fair reaction for them to do. But, okay, this is, again, there's a lot of shells here. One of the things we've always been talking about when we talk about Living Legend projections is, well, remember, you can earn more than 1,000, right? So you look at Starvo. Starvo had like 1,500. I think Lexi's going to end up with like 1,200 something, maybe even 1,300 something. I haven't looked at it today, right? I mean, I didn't look at her final, which I should have, but I didn't. It doesn't matter. I can put it up. Okay, but you get my point. Heroes can earn more. So when you look at the total points available for a season, you're like, okay, well, they don't stop at 1,000 and start giving those points to other people. But now they kind of do, right? So what's going to happen? Like, you're not going to see a Starvo go to 15. I mean, unless they're absolutely killing it. You're not going to see someone go significantly over the 500 limit, the 1,000 limit, depending on the format, which means that you are going to have better distribution within your hero pool. I mean, that is a fact, right? If that hero is no longer available for the next 2 to 3 weeks of the competitive season, by definition, those points are going to go somewhere else, right? So when you start spreading those around, you now need to look at the entire hero pool instead of saying, okay, there's, last season we were like, the skirmish season, for example, we said there's 536 points available. We think Kano's going to get 25% of it or whatever. And you can start doing the math. And you're like, okay, well, Kano will end up blah, 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 right? Now, obviously, that didn't happen because they went to 1 point. But hopefully you see what I'm driving at here, right? You start not really peanut buttering, but you don't have that ceiling because they're gone. And the points have to go somewhere else. Somebody else has to win that event, right? So what I have up right now is, as of yesterday, okay, this is pulled from Fab TCG Events Locator. There are, as of the time of that, 781 total skirmishes listed in Gem. This is for skirmish season 8. Okay, 536 listed in Gem. And there are 4 points now per skirmish win. Well, that's 2,144 LL points on the table, both figuratively and literally, for skirmish season 8. 500 point cap. Y'all can do math. You get it, right? This is why I'm saying they're throwing a boom grenade, at least in Blitz, right? They're burning this MFer down, right? They want everybody to go because, and again, if we were to look at it in the old way, we'd be like, okay, Chane, Kano, and Kassai, right? Probably our big 3. They're going to earn the majority of the points. Well, if they earn a majority of those points week 1, they got to go somewhere. They got to go somewhere, right? So again, and you know what? I should probably do this. I don't know that I care enough to do the time to do it, but you all could do it. You go look at how those break down over week. And if you have enough points to get those 3 out, where are those other points going to go? I mean, we have enough on the table, again, to LL from 0 to 500, 4 heroes. And it's not like before where that hero could go from 499 points going into the season. If they win 1 skirmish, they're out. Now they're not going from 400 to 800. They're going from 400 to 520. They're out. Somebody else is getting those points. Okay. Hopefully you understand what I'm driving at. They're clearing the board, right? They're going to burn it down. So I want to be very clear here. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm not saying it's a good thing. Let's say what I asked going in here was that we just put on, our logical hats and did the math on this. And what I'm driving at here is the motivation behind this is I'm seeing a lot of stuff on the Twitters, on the Facebooks, on the Discords and whatever. And most people seem to be pro this for turnover. And I tend to agree. I know somebody's shouting at the screen right now. It's like, well, Andrew, you're a Kassai main, so you're biased, which you're not wrong, but if you remember going into Skirmish Season 7, I also thought she was going to go away in Skirmish 7. So I kind of feel like we're on borrowed time. So when Kassai almost certainly LLs week 1 of Skirmish 8, I'm not going to be overly butthurt about it. I just think it's, as an engineer, as a math-based person, I look at the numbers here and I'm like, holy shnikes, this is going to be huge. Because again, you don't have Kano winning all season and ending with 700, 800 points. Those points have to go somewhere. And this is a big deal. It's a huge deal, right? So the point changes are their own thing, right? The point changes, we assume, are based on the number of events that there's going to be. But you can see again, because I haven't taken it down yet, there's roughly the same number of events, and again, at least now, and this can only go up until the season starts, there's roughly the same number of events in 8 as there were in 7. And in 7, they were worth 1 point. Now, we didn't see much movement in 7. So actually, I don't think we saw any movement in 7 in terms of LL. So maybe 1 point was too low, fair enough, right? But before it was 2, then it was 1, now it's 4. And it's the same number of events. So something's changing, right? And, there's a lot of speculation to be had on this. We know we're going to 4 expansions next year. They're all going to be big sets, quote unquote, which is going to be awesome. That means more heroes coming in. They are probably trying to clear the board for that. But 2,000 points available during just this skirmish season. There were 3 skirmish seasons this year? Is that right? 6, 7, and 8? Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, if each one of these has 2,000 points, that's obviously not sustainable, right? So one of two things is going to happen. They're going to have to drop the points, or they're going to have to significantly reduce the number of events that they do for skirmish seasons, or do completely less skirmish seasons. And, it kind of an aside on that. Skirmish season 8 is weird, right? It starts Worlds weekend. So there are going to be skirmish events happening during Worlds weekend, which maybe because they removed Blitz from Worlds, maybe that's what they're trying to do to keep Blitz relevant across the world. But remember, you're going to have a lot of the bestest players in the world in Barcelona and not at their locals playing the skirmishes. So I wonder how that's going to skew it. I wonder how it's going to skew event attendance, people showing up. And then when LSS goes at the end and pulls the data and says, oh, well, it looks like Blitz isn't as popular as it used to be. I hope they're keeping that in mind in terms of their data. But that's kind of an aside to this. Anyway, I think I'm going to wrap this up, and hopefully you aren't. Again, I'm not debating the Living Legend format and whether you like it or whether you're not. That's not the point of this conversation, right? The point of the conversation is saying, look at the changes. Something big's coming, because mathematically, the announcements this week don't make a lot of sense, right? I mean, to be clear, the checking on Monday thing makes complete sense, right? If they're trying to solve a problem, if you assume it's a problem, if you think it's a problem, whatever. If they're trying to solve an issue that they've identified as being an issue, having the constant check thing is brilliant. But again, you need to realize that both of those combine to really maximize the value of the points, right? So not only are we increasing point values, we're increasing the distribution of those points, and combined, our powers combined, more heroes are going to reach LL. That's the crux of the statement. Okay. So anyway, that's my take. I'd love to hear your thoughts, not about whether or not you like LL, but your thoughts about what do you think about the changes to the LL system? That's more what I'm hoping for. So hoping for civil discourse. Leave me your comments below, your thoughts. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me on something's afoot in LSS land or in Fab World? Something's afoot in Fab World. So anyway, let me know your thoughts. Thanks, folks, and go Commando.